So, und da sind wir wieder bei The Great Ace Attorney Escapades, der letzten Episode. In der vorigen Episode, waren wir auf der Briar Road und haben ein Rätsel gelöst von einem gestohlenen Schilling. Und ich habe nochmal nachgeguckt, das Spiel tatsächlich nachdem Susato gegangen ist, also nach dem letzten Fall. Der letzte Fall hat sich Mitte April abgespielt und diese Episode war am 30. April, also Susato ist schon weg und Gina wurde freigesprochen und muss jetzt scheinbar auch nicht mehr im Gefängnis sein. Beziehungsweise in Untersuchung. Gut, dann haben wir jetzt Episode 8 in the Bailey. This escapade takes place in the Old Bailey courtroom, where the defendant is none other than Sholmes himself, and the charge is a most mysterious murder. Okay, Sholmes ist der Angeklagte. Leonoski naturally advocates for the defense against the unflappable Reaper, Lord Van Zieks, but Sholmes' testimony calls the true culprit of the crime into question. Okay, dann bin ich mal gespannt. Die letzte Episode in the Bailey. Let's go! Ich hätte nicht gedacht, dass wir ins Gericht kommen in diesen Eskapaden, aber gut. Date unknown. The Old Bailey Courtroom. Als ob das Datum jetzt nicht bekannt ist. Oh oh. This court is now in session for the trial of Mr. Herlock Sholmes. This is a most extraordinary case of murder. Counsels, I assume I may proceed. Yes, my lord. The defense is ready. At your discretion, my lord. Very well. I hereby call on the prosecution to introduce the case. The incident in question took place 2 days ago, late at night, when the ground was blanketed with snow. The location of the incident was the residence of the accused, Mr. Herlock Sholmes. Indeed, the now famous address of number 221B Baker Street, was it? The address may have enjoyed fame once, my lord, but will henceforth endure infamy for this grim crime. Yes, sir. Well put. The victim, a certain Madame Rosie, was found asphyxiated in the accused sofa. Was ist asphyxiated? Asphyxiated. Erstickt. Ah, okay. My word.
Objection!
But it's unclear as to whether the victim was actually killed in the defendant's suite or not. After all, when Mr. Sholmes left the room for only a brief moment, Madame Rosie somehow vanished herself out of his room completely. Vanished herself, counsel. The victim? Quite true, my lord. There's but one adjoining door between my drawing room and kitchen. Yet having brewed some tea in the kitchen, I returned to find the room completely empty. There was nobody else present. Ordinarily, my fellow lodger Iris would have been at home. However, on the day in question, she had been invited to a meeting of a scientific society in the city. I'm afraid you have a propensity of exaggeration, sir. You claim the victim's vanished herself, but really, it seems to me entirely plausible that she chose to leave via the main entrance to your suite. As it happens, my lord, the door to the accused's room was locked at the time, from the inside. Very true, Inspector. As such, I can say with considerable surety that the victim did not leave via my front door. But what about, aha, yes! She could have snuck out through a window.
Objection!
The windows in the room were not locked, it's true, and the victim had the opportunity. However, there was snow all around the building outside, and not a patch of it had been disturbed. Would my learned friend care to explain how the victim could have left without leaving a trail? So the victim, Madame Rosie, somehow vanished from the scene before she was killed. Wir kennen aber Madame Rosie nicht, ne? Also das ist eine uneingeführte Figur, glaube ich. Ah, Naturally, I was alarmed by the sudden disappearance of my guest. So I summoned this gentleman, who resides in the attic room above my own, and we took a cab to Scotland Yard. I can confirm that the defendant called for me, and I saw his suite on my way downstairs. And yes, I'm quite sure it was empty, just as Mr. Sholmes has said. When we reached the yard, this very detective happened to be there. Ah, well, yes, you see, I was just in my office for a while, having got back from some, important business. And then, having explained the situation to the inspector, we traveled back to Baker Street together. At that time, there were no footprints in the snow around the building other than the ones we'd made. Do I take it then, Counsel, that you personally witnessed the scene where the incident took place? No, my lord. I went straight up to bed in my own room in the attic. Inspector Gregson, however, was met with the most blood-curdling sight. On Mr. Sholmes' sofa, the vanished Madame Rosie, motionless. So the victim was already dead when you discovered her, Inspector? No, my lord, not dead, but not far off it. She mustered all her remaining strength to say these dying words. That water, Sholmes, will be the death of me. Ah yes, I overheard that remark at the time too, delivered in a rasping voice full of malice. No. Those words indeed proved to be her last. The victim expired moments later, there on the sofa. The cause of death was identified as damage to the respiratory tract as a result of strangulation. Pray, does the accused dare to contest the inspector's account? Certainly not. In fact, the inspector has done an unusually fine job of summarizing the salient points. Sholmes will be the death of me. Damning departing words indeed. In her final moments, the victim named her killer. You, Mr. Herlock Sholmes.
Objection!
But the defendant had no reason to take the victim's life. Perhaps you could tell the court, Mr. Sholmes, who exactly this Madame Rosie was. Ah, yes, of course. Did I never mention her to you? I'd extended an invitation to her that evening, though she is loquacious in the extreme. The most trivial of matters quickly become a quarrel. Besides quarrel. Streit, okay. I was only too pleased to leave her presence to make tea. Great. It would appear then that the accused did in fact have a motive for silencing his heuristic guest. Permanently.
Objection!
Weil sie einfach nervig war, oder was? Putting that tenuous motive aside, what about the other mysteries surrounding the case? I'm inclined to agree with the defense. There remain a number of inscrutable details. The victim's alleged disappearance and subsequent reappearance leaving no trail of footprints, for example. That's right, the crime described by the prosecution could never have happened. Yet the victim named the accused in her dying breath. It seems to me that my learned friend has overlooked a significant detail here. Nonsense! What have I overlooked? The man in the dock, the so-called great detective, all too frequently makes the following bold claim. There's no crime beyond the realms of possibility, no mystery beyond my powers of reasoning. Ah! So, Mr. Sholmes, you will have no difficulty in explaining how the crime thus described could have taken place. Therefore, I propose a toast to the great detective upholding his name. But of course, were I to put my mind to the matter, the crime would immediately appear to our present to be entirely feasible. Please, Mr. Sholmes, whose side are you on? All you need to say is, no, even I can't think of a way that a crime like that could have been committed. Let the accused's admission be noted by the court. Though the crime may appear impossible to us mortals of inferior mental capacity, this man alone claims to know exactly how it was done.
Hold it!
Now hold on, that's a very fragile... Thank you, counsels. I believe I've heard more than enough to proceed to my adjudication. The accused great detective did, in some inscrutable manner, willfully murder the victim, Madame Rosie. I therefore find the defendant... What? Let this man be taken from this courtroom and, in some equally inscrutable manner, be sanctioned for his crimes. Court is adjourned. Wait, what?
Hold it!
My lord, please. The truth about the mystery surrounding this case are known to another besides the great detective. What's this? Upon my words, Mr. Naruto, you are coming along wonderfully. You've deduced a fundamental truth about this case, I believe. Which would be, detective, that the truth of this case is known. Only to the true culprit, obviously. Is that not so, Gregson? Wait. What? Well, I suppose, yes. You don't mean... Are you suggesting, Mr. Sholmes, that you have an idea as to what actually happened that night? An idea? My dear fellow. I could explain the entire incident from start to finish with not a single detail omitted. Oh yeah.
Objection!
It seems the detective has failed to grasp the situation. Pray, Mr. Reaper, which of us has truly failed to grasp the situation, I wonder? Then answer me this. You claim that prior to the incident, the victim suddenly vanished without a trace from your room. If so, how exactly did Madame Rosie disappear? Why, naturally, via the window. It was ajar after all. But that can't be. The room is a whole story above street level, and anyway, no prints were found in the snow. There are any number of ways one could avoid leaving tracks in the snow, surely. Such as flying, for instance. A fatuous notion. And to where do you propose the victim flew, Mr. Sholmes? Is it not entirely plain? To the culprit's abode, of course. Okay, zur Unterkunft von dem Täter. For having left my suite, that is clearly where Madame Rosie was murdered. Take a moment to consider the cruel irony, if you will. By her own volition, she flew directly to her death.
Objection!
Do you forget, detective? The victim's corpse was discovered on your own sofa. No doubt, because her killer carried her back there. But what about the lack of footprints in the snow again then? There just weren't any. Other than our own, from when we returned home ourselves. If by our footprints you refer to your own and mine, you are quite right. But there were those of another. On the night in question, there was one other person who could have conveyed the victim to my sofa. What? Good gracious! To whom do you refer, sir? A man whose somewhat unavailing presence at the scene of the crime would be questioned by no one. Unavailing? Ah! You don't mean... Unavailing? Was genau heißt das? Unavailing. Vergeblich. Okay. Indeed I do. A man who hastened to the scene directly upon learning of the incident at Scotland Yard. Namely... you, Inspector Gregson. When you arrived at my address on Baker Street, you were carrying the half-dead Madame Rosie with you. You waited for a suitable opportunity, and then laid the victim on my sofa. He did what? Hä, aber ich kann mir das bei Gregson auch nicht vorstellen. But we were with the inspector when he arrived. How could he possibly have been carrying the victim? He would have noticed. My dear fellow, a most obvious answer presents itself, does it not? The inspector is rarely, if ever, without his overcoat. The victim was simply conveyed in one of his many pockets. Bitte was? Hä? In einer seiner Taschen? Was? I fail to see what makes this detective great, but I can say one thing with great certainty. A human body cannot fit into the pocket of an overcoat. I believe you may all have fallen foul of a rather significant misapprehension. What? Madame Rosie was not a human. Bitte? I beg your pardon. Mr. Sholmes? Yes, Mr. Naruhodo? Something troubles you, perhaps? Whatever gives you that idea. Exactly what sort of creature was Madame Rosie? Is it not apparent already? A parakeet, of course. Was ist ein Parakeet? Sittich. Was? Ein Sittich? Okay. Also ein Vogel. Huh? A most self-conceited specimen, in fact. A parakeet. She was an incessant talker, I must say. Her manner was quite intolerable at times. Want to turn every conversation to a quarrel. I thought to strangle the creature on more than one occasion. You had a quarrel with a parakeet? I mean, Phoenix hatte einen Kreuzverhör mit einem Papageien, also... Yeah, but of course, why else would she have chosen to fly from my window so uncordially that evening? To the abode of the inspector here, beside me, no less. To Inspector Gregson's abode. But why? Because that was the parakeet's home, naturally. What are you? The inspector was called away from town for some days, so it was arranged that I would look after the bird. But it would appear that she was overcome with a sudden yearning for a keeper, thus prompting her flight from my comfortable suite to the inspector's office at Scotland Yard. Well, Gregson, I believe it's high time you explained. Give us your account of what happened that night, sparing no details, of course. Oh, natürlich, Flying, ne? Darauf hätte man eigentlich schon früher kommen können, als er gesagt hat, dass sie geflogen ist. Inspector Gregson. It was an accident. I got back from being away that evening, you see? I just walked through the door of my office. I never imagined Madame Rosie would be on her way back to the yard as well. I slammed the door shut behind me, just as she was trying to fly through it. Oh no. So Madame Rosie. She got sandwiched between the door and the frame and fell to the floor. Never to move again. Because of me. Well, I never. I had to do something, and just when I was trying to think of a plan, you fellas arrived talking about some incident at Baker Street. Ah! I had to hide Madame Rosie in a hurry, so I stuffed her in my coat pocket and got in the cab with the pair of you. What could possibly have motivated you to behave in such a manner, Inspector? Lord Strongheart, sir. What? Lord Strongheart? Please tell me I didn't hear that right. Also der Justice Minister. It was the Lord Chief Justice who asked me to... Lord Chief Justice, ja. who asked me to look after the bird in the first place. She'd been living with the pigeons at the Supreme Court until then. But apparently the other birds had started to pick on her. So for the past 6 months or so, I've been caring for her in my office at the yard. I see. If anything happened to that bird, just imagine. No pay and no time off for the rest of my career. You mark my words, that's what's gonna happen. That's why well... Es ist wirklich Gumshow, ne? Oh Mann. But the victim's dying words, Inspector. The court heard earlier that Madame Rosie spoke the name of her assailant on the deathbed. That water, Sholmes, will be the death of me. Indeed she did. Quite uncalled for, wouldn't you agree? But for those words, are your true feelings, are they not, Inspector? Clearly you speak of me often at your office at the yard, in this disparaging manner. A manner that the merry parakeet took much delight in mimicking. Well, come on, I mean, I have you read this month's edition of Friends magazine, eh? Have you read this month's edition of Friends magazine, eh? I'm... Sorry! This is all absolutely true? Oh man. Okay. Something wrong, Lord von Zieks? Ah, no. Nothing. I almost drifted off for a moment there. Als ob! Als ob! Hat er das nur geträumt? It's hard not to drift off, when you've been kept waiting 3 hours already. I wonder if we managed to meet with Lord Strongheart at all today. We may have to deliver the report on the Windybank case that he asked for on another day. Als ob das nach dem Windybank case, also nach dem Final-Case. Dann wartet er da, will reporten und schläft dann ein, einfach weil er wartet. Nice. Tell me, Inspector, what became of that bird? Ah, Madame Rosie, you mean? She had a narrow escape, but she's still alive. I delivered her back here not long ago, actually, on Lord Strongheart's orders. He's hoping the pigeons will accept her now. It was something of a shock to hear that she'd been crushed in the doorway of your office. Especially as we are all under the misapprehension that Madame Rosie was a person. Sorry about that. It was Lord Strongheart's demand that... Ah, good, you're here. I apologize for my tardiness. I'm exactly 3 hours, 24 minutes and 57 seconds late. Oh no, my lord! No, please don't trouble yourself. Nothing gives us greater pleasure than standing here doing nothing for hours on end. Heartening. So, let's hear it then. Your report. The Windybank trial is concluded, but this is far from over. It seems that Dark, Far Eastern lawyer and I have some shared destiny. We will meet again, of that I have no doubt. Did you see that, Lord von Zieks? Did you? Madame Rosie went flying off among the pigeons there, happy as Larry she was. Really, Inspector? You must be relieved. Oh Mann, ey. Ja, coole letzte Episode. Und wir werden... Ace Aficionado awarded. Wahrscheinlich, wenn wir alle Episoden durchgespielt haben. Mann, ey. Ja, gut. das waren dann die Escapades. War jetzt nichts Besonderes, aber ich fand's nice. Ich glaube, meine Lieblinge waren Episode 3, wo wir über die Steuern gesprochen haben, Episode 6, wo wir mit Mr. Natsuno Japanisch gelernt haben, und erst Ende von Episode 8 hat's rausgeholt, aber ich würde tatsächlich sagen, Episode 3 und Episode 6 haben mir am besten gefallen. Ja gut, ihr könnt ja mal gerne schreiben, was eure Lieblings-Eskapaden waren. Würde mich freuen auf jeden Fall. Und ich würde sagen, wir sehen uns dann. Warte mal, wir sehen uns finally dann wieder bei The Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolve. Ich bin schon sehr hyped auf dieses Spiel, muss ich sagen. Ich bin schon sehr, sehr hyped auf dieses Spiel, weil von dem, was ich gehört habe, ist es eines der besten Ace Attorney Spiele. Und allein dieser Name Resolve, was ja auf Deutsch Entschlossenheit heißt, Alter, das verursacht schon jetzt gerade, ich weiß nicht, ob man es merkt, das verursacht jetzt gerade schon bei mir Gänsehaut. Resolve, Entschlossenheit. Weil der Lord Strong hat, ich glaube das war in Episode 3, hat zu Rionosuke gesagt, ein Anwalt braucht Resolve, ein Anwalt braucht Entschlossenheit. Das ist, was gebraucht wird. Und ich denke mal, darauf wird dieses Spiel zurückkommen. Und ich bin sehr, sehr excited darüber. Weil ich finde, bei Ace Attorney, wenn die so ein Konzept haben, Resolve oder Believing oder so, oder was die auch, was auch immer da ist, Identity, was auch immer. Wenn die so ein Konzept haben, so ein Thema, dann führen die das immer grandios aus. Und wenn dieses Thema von Resolve, was im ersten Teil schon angeteasert wurde, jetzt im zweiten Teil ausgeführt wird, dann bekomme ich jetzt schon Gänsehaut, wenn ich mir noch vorstelle, was damit alles möglich ist. Also ich habe wirklich hohe Erwartungen an das Game. Und ja, das werden wir dann bald hier auf diesem Kanal spielen. Ich werde vorher... ich weiß noch nicht, das ist jetzt so in die Zukunft gesagt, ne? Aber ist noch lange hin. Ich habe jetzt heute ist der 15. August, wenn ich das hier aufnehme. Ihr werdet das hier wahrscheinlich irgendwann, ich schätze mal so Mitte, Ende Oktober sehen, wenn es hochkommt. Weil ich denke mal, September kriege ich locker noch voll mit The Great Ace Attorney Adventures. Und ich denke mal, Resolve wird dann mehr so ein Winterprojekt, obwohl ich das auch schon in einer Woche aufnehmen werde. Also für mich wird es noch Sommer sein. Aber es kommt dann erst im Winter, denke ich mal. Winter, Herbst so. Deswegen möchte ich noch nichts ankündigen. Aber im Moment plane ich auch, so eine kleine Review zu machen. Über The Great Ace Attorney 1. Oder The Great Ace Attorney Adventures. Da habe ich nachgedacht. Ich habe viele Gedanken zu dem Spiel, die ich teilweise auch schon ausgesprochen habe. Aber vielleicht würde ich es cool finden, das nochmal in so einem Video einzeln zu haben. Also wenn morgen oder so eine Review online kommt auf diesem Kanal, dann wisst ihr, ich habe es gemacht. Und wenn morgen nichts kommt, dann wisst ihr, ich habe es nicht gemacht. Aber ja, ich bin ja jetzt die nächste Woche in Berlin. Da werdet ihr die Vlogs auch schon lange gesehen haben, wenn ihr das hier seht. Aber ich bin dann in Berlin. Und ich plane da vielleicht schon mal eine Review zu schreiben. Weil ich habe viel zu sagen zu dem Spiel. Ich habe mir auch im Harz viele Gedanken darüber gemacht. Von daher, ja, gucken wir mal, ob das was wird oder nicht. Das soll aber nicht mehr Thema sein von heute. Das Video geht jetzt schon 30 Minuten, das ist die längste Episode der Eskapaden. Aber ich denke mal, das ist auch nicht schlimm, weil es ja die finale Eskapade war. Gut, anyway, ich wünsche euch einen wunderschönen Winter. Und wunderschönen Herbst und so weiter, ne? Hatte ich ja auch schon beim finalen Part von Adventures gesagt. Und ja, ich bedanke mich fürs dabei sein, ich bedanke mich fürs Zuschauen. Und wir sehen uns dann wieder bei The Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolve. Ich bedanke mich fürs Zuschauen, ich bedanke mich fürs dabei sein. Ich bin wahnsinnig hyped. Ich mag das Spiel sehr bisher. Und ja, bis dann, ciao, ciao und Einspruch. Ja, haha. Ich dachte, ich würde es vergessen. Nein, da muss ich Einspruch erheben. Okay. Ciao, Leute. Bis dann.